Between Nietzsche and Jung, finding the middle path in the meaning crisis. We're living through a crisis, not a crisis of resources or politics, but a crisis of meaning. And this isn't new. The crisis has been creeping in for centuries, woven into the fabric of modernity. But now, it's accelerating. We can feel it in the digital world, where we don't know ourselves, only our profiles. We can see it in the way we perform identity rather than live it. We chase authenticity, but we do so while knowing we are always being watched, always performing. We have lost something, but many don't even know what it is. Others, those in this corner of the internet, Paul Vanderklay's audience, the Peterson crowd, the Vervaeke thinkers, the Vervaeke thinkers. Oh, I said it again. The Vervaeke thinkers, the post-rationalists, at least they sense that something is missing. But even here, we are trapped in a paradox. Some want faith, but cannot simply believe. Others reject faith, but still feel the pull of the sacred. So we look backward. We dig through history, philosophy, theology, searching, sometimes desperately, for answers. But we don't just need answers. We need the right questions. And the question today is, how do we find a path forward that is neither blind faith nor nihilistic rejection? So Nietzsche versus Jung, the two conflicting paths. We're trapped between two voices that have shaped this crisis. The first is Nietzsche, the destroyer of illusions. He saw the imitation of Christ, the book, the archetype, the way of life, as a kind of renunciation, a retreat from reality, a submission to weakness disguised as virtue. Christianity for him was a surrender, a turning away from the world rather than an embrace of it. In many ways, he was right. Religion for centuries had become an institution of control, not transformation. Faith had become submission, not engagement. And so Nietzsche called for a transvaluation of values, a rejection of inherited morality in favor of self-creating meaning. Now, to water down that critique a little bit, J. Krishnamurti in 1925, when he dissolved the Order of the Orient Star, he said that religion had become a place where people came to be told what to believe, not forced, but even by choice. People come to a religion of faith, hoping to be told, rather than to be supported while they figure that out for themselves. But in rejecting faith, Nietzsche, he left us stranded, without a God to imitate. We were left to construct our own purpose, and few have been able to do so without falling into despair. Well, then comes Jung, who did not see Christ as a mere illusion, but as an archetype embedded in the human psyche. For Jung, the imitation of Christ was not about renouncing life, but about individuation, becoming whole. Christ, in his view, is the self-made manifest, the integration of the divine and the human. And in this, Jung also had a point. There is something in the Christ story, whether literal or psychological, that speaks to human nature. The faithful, knowing or not, engage with this image in a way that reshapes them. It is a path towards wholeness, towards integration. So here we are, trapped between these two visions. One sees faith as deception, the other as necessity. And most people choose one side or the other. They either believe or reject. But there is another way. The middle way, beyond belief and rejection. The answer is not to choose between Nietzsche and Jung. The answer is to wrestle with both. Look at the figures who have struggled with meaning, not just Nietzsche and Jung, but Jacob, the Buddha, Arjuna. They did not find truth by submitting or rejecting. They found it by struggling. Jacob wrestled with God and became Israel, he who struggles with God. Buddha sat under the Bodhi tree and faced suffering rather than escaping, and he fought Mara. Arjuna stood on the battlefield, paralyzed by doubt, until Krishna revealed his Dharma. This is the path, not an escape from struggle, but an engagement with it. We don't need blind faith. We don't need pure skepticism. We need a way to live that confronts meaning directly. And I want to remind that Nietzsche said this this true path would be one of unknowing, which is some of the scariest for us. The eyes that see are seen. The eyes that see and are seen. This is a moment when this struggle becomes personal. A moment when you realize that the eyes you see with are the same eyes that see you. It is the realization that you are not just searching for meaning, you're shaping that meaning. That you are not just asking questions, you are the question. This is what Nietzsche called Schätzen, this idea of evaluation, but what we value is what we treasure, is our meaning, is our creation. And in this moment, something shifts. The search is no longer external. It's no longer about trying to construct an identity from fragments. It's about being present in the struggle itself. But further than that, as Nietzsche himself said, it's a gestalt, right? We're not struggling with our identity from the fragments. Our identity is the fragments. And how we tie that together is our myth. Matthias Desmet said that. Identity of the stories that other people tell. Or in this case, they're the fragments of experience and imagination and preference. Whereas the myth is what ties that all together, or the stories that you tell that you live. So Psalm 46, line 10. Be still and know that I am. And this is where I come back to Psalm 46:10, a passage often misquoted, often misunderstood. Many translations say, be still and know that I am God. But that's not what it actually says. It simply says, be still and know that I am. Not a command to acknowledge a deity, but an invitation to presence, to reality itself, to being. This is the middle path. Not just belief, not just skepticism, but presence. So how do we find our own path? So where does this leave us? What are we supposed to do? The truth is, meaning is not something you find. It is something you cultivate. It is shaped through engagement, through practice, through choosing a life of struggle rather than apathy. The real enemy is not doubt. The real enemy is ennui. It is apathy, the numbness that comes from avoiding the question altogether. So I'll leave you with this. Do not look for the perfect answer. Remember, perfect belongs in a museum. Do not wait for certainty. Instead, choose how to live. Live is to practice. Faith in every other language is your devotion and your commitment. And from that flows your conviction. And this is what I think St. John of the Cross meant when he said, these things are not understood when sought. These things are only understood when practiced and thus found. So, wrestle with meaning. Stand on the battlefield. Face the struggle. And in the stillness, you may come to know I am.